Hey, beautiful soul. Welcome to Spirit Speakeasy. I'm Joy Giovanni, Joyful Medium. I'm a working psychic medium, energy healer, and spiritual gifts mentor. This podcast is like a seat at the table in a secret club, but with mediums, mystics, and the spiritual luminaries of our time. So come behind the velvet ropes with me and see inside my world as I chat insider style with profoundly gifted souls. We go deep, share juicy stories, laugh a lot, and it wouldn't be a speakeasy without great insider secrets and tips. You might even learn that you have some gifts of your own. So step inside the Spirit Speakeasy. Hey, beautiful soul. Are you psychic? That's what we're going to talk about on today's episode of Spirit Speakeasy. I feel like this is a topic that is so often talked about, but a lot of the information that's out there and a lot of what I hear people saying is just not right. So I really wanted to have the opportunity to address this topic with you. Are you psychic? Now, I'll talk about this a little bit more at the end, but I do have a free live workshop coming up that I just announced. It is going to be 5 days live with me in the Joy Soul Spa Facebook community. If you're on my email list, my VIP Insiders email, you will receive lots of notifications about this. It's going to be starting on April 10th, which is a Monday. It's going to be 5 days long, every day with me, live in the Joy Soul Spa Facebook group at noon Pacific, which is 3 p.m. Eastern. And I think time will change for the UK by then, and it'll be 8 p.m. UK. But look at your local time zones. We are going to learn all about igniting your intuition. So whether you are someone who has a working understanding of your intuition already or is brand new to all of this, there's going to be something there for you. We're going to do a lot of fun exercises, and I'm going to teach you how to really ignite your intuition for the spring. So let's talk about this topic, are you psychic? And the first thing I want to address is the word psychic. Now, we all know that this has gotten kind of a bad connotation over time. If you remember back in the day, there were lots of advertisements for those television psychics that you would call in and get a phone reader. And some of those are actually legitimate. I know people that have worked on those over the years, and there are some legitimate psychic readers there. But there are also always people wanting to scam good, innocent people in every field. No matter what you do, there is some kind of scam artist in that field. So it's not totally unique to psychics, mediums, this industry, these gifts, but, maybe has a bad oil even back to the olden times when people were driving around in carts trying to sell snake oil that were, magic cures that weren't real. That all gets lumped under this umbrella of bad psychics. That's not at all what psychics are. It's not what they do. I feel like one of the most common misconceptions about what it means to be psychic is that people think, usually through media or movies or whatnot, that psychic means predicting the future, and it does not. So, while as a psychic, as an intuitive, I sometimes can blend into a person's energy and understand things going on with them, choices they're making, changes in their life, things about their past. Sometimes I can understand information about traumas or education that they've had, or hobbies or interests, or things about their life, their emotions. And sometimes as a part of that, I might get an understanding of some of their potentials for the future. But I can't definitively predict the future, nor can anyone else, because we have this magical part of our human experience called free will. So all that means is we all make our own choices. Someone can tell me that I'm going to be, 55 the next time that I get married. But if I decide in myself, I'm never getting married again, then that's probably not going to happen because I'm making a free will choice. So any psychic or intuitive, those words are really interchangeable at this point. We'll talk more about that in just a minute. We can see potentials and possibilities for the future, but it's up to the individual to seize those potentials. And sometimes that means making choices in a direction to make those things come to fruition. Sometimes it means work that we need to do on ourselves as the individual in order to be ready for an opportunity that might cross our path, right? But psychics can help you be prepared for what it is that you get to work on within yourself or what might be a potential for you in the future. But it's not about predicting the future. I always joke about this, but when my first mentor told me that I was psychic, I told her she was nuts because I was like, I don't experience it like that, because my experience from movies and TV and things that we all enjoy is that if someone's having a psychic episode, right, or like a psychic, I don't know, experience, that time stands still and big visions appear, almost like a movie playing in front of their eyes, and everything stops, or a big loud voice talks to them from out of the sky. And this is not at all how I experience it. Maybe for some people it works that way, but by and large, most of the psychics and mediums that I know, that's just not how it works. And so I feel like of course, it's frustrating when we're trying to use our intuition or trying to use our abilities, and it doesn't work like that for us. So we're expecting there to be some big voice telling us what to do, or a big flash of, time standing still and a movie scene playing out that's predicting the future. That's just not real. It might be once in a blue moon that might happen to someone, but it's not the way it works all the time. Now I want to touch into something I mentioned, psychic and intuitive being the same thing. It's just two different words that essentially express the same thing. And many more people these days, because of those connotations we were talking about, are more comfortable with the word intuitive than psychic. But really, it means the same thing. It means that the person that's reading, the worker or the psychic or the intuitive, is blending the energy of their soul with a living person or situation to understand details, information, and potentially give guidance for the future about a person, an event, a situation, etc. So that's really what it means. Now, why is this such a strange thing for us to understand? Well, partially because historically, in the way that we are brought up in many cultures, not all cultures, we are taught these days about our five senses. So that's, taste, touch, sound, smell, sight, right? The five senses that we experience through our physical body. But what we're not taught is this additional group of senses. It's often referred to as the sixth sense, although it's not just one sense, it's several lumped together in this ball as a sixth or an additional type of sensing. And this is what we're talking about when we're talking about the intuition, the psychic. It's even what we're talking about when we're talking about people being empathic. And the truth is, every single human being is empathic. So sometimes people will take a quiz or read an article and they'll say, oh my gosh, I'm an empath. Well, of course you are. You're a human being. You're a soul that is experiencing all of these human emotions. And that is an additional way that we get information empathically, through the sensing, through the emotions. And that really is how the psychic faculty works, is through the sensing, through the emotions. So let me tell you quickly what an empath is, just in case this is a new word for you. Really, what it means to be empathic means that you can sense, feel, and maybe even understand the emotions of other people in your space. So how this might show up is if someone's a sensitive kiddo and they have a classmate, for example, who sits near them in class, and this kid that sits near them has a lot of sadness going on. Maybe something's happened in their home life they're very sad. And the kid who is in touch and tune, sensitive to their emotions, feels that sadness. And sometimes they understand that, oh, this person is sad. And sometimes they take it on themselves, meaning it's almost like they match that person's sadness or that person's emotion to try to understand it. But if we've not been taught to work with our emotions and our sensing, sometimes it just feels like we're a little bit down as well. Where you might have seen this for yourself is if you've ever worked outside of the home in an environment with other people. Sometimes if one person is a little bit off or is sad or is upset or in a bad mood, it's like you notice the energy of everyone, the emotion of everyone, or many people starting to be swayed by the person that's having the hardest time. That's because we're all empathic by nature. It's part of that unintentional or just automatic compassion that rises for a lot of people. We match the person that's in the greatest need. And it's why we can leave those exchanges, those encounters with someone who's having a tough emotion feeling kind of yucky ourselves. But it's also why you might have that one friend or that one person who is high vibing in their emotion, right? Meaning that they're energetic, they're positive, they're in a good mood, things are going well for them, and they just have a general attitude and emotion of positivity. And you might feel a little lifted up when you're around that person. It's a very similar thing, just, two sides of the same coin. So being empathic just means being able to sense, feel, and understand the emotions of people around us. Now, it's nothing that we need to make happen. It's just a natural part of us. However, we can train and practice and learn how to understand it just like we do everything else. If you think about it, those of us that have the ability to speak verbally, we're taught language from the time that we're small. Yes, we have the ability naturally, the gift to make sounds with our vocal cords, make noise, but learning the specific style of communication, the cadence, the words, the meaning of the language that you grew up speaking, that's something that's taught. And it's not really different from the psychic faculties, right? We have them as a part of us, but it doesn't mean we necessarily know what's happening or know how to use them, especially because it's something that we just don't often talk about. It's not taught in school. I think it should be taught. I'm championing this cause. I think it should be taught to kids in school from a very young age, that this emotional intelligence, right? So when I talk about this group of senses that we identify as the sixth sense, I want to talk a little bit more about what exactly I'm talking about, what those senses are, and how they might show up. So there's a big list of them. I'm going to go through them kind of quickly. In that workshop I mentioned, we dive a little deeper into them. You might have heard them called the clairs, or you might be familiar with some of these words that are all based around clair, which means clear. So the claircognizance is the clear knowing. How you might have seen that show up in your own life is, have you ever, like, the phone has rang and suddenly before you even look or pick it up, you think like, oh, I wonder if that's so-and-so. And it is. That's the claircognizance. That's your clear knowing. Clairvoyance is the clear sight. So that most often shows up as flashes of pictures for people when they're working psychically, and how you might already be using that faculty, even if you're not using it in a psychic capacity, is through your imagination, because that clairvoyance is so closely linked to, or right next to, working in unison in conjunction with the imagination. So if I were to tell you a story about my day and I tell you, oh, I went to the store and I went to the back cabinet in the freezer section and I got some ice and I got a bottle of cold water, and then I walked to the register and I was fumbling around for my credit card, you can start to imagine the pictures in your mind, like a movie playing out, sort of, but not exactly, of me going through my day as I'm telling you the story. And you probably do that on a regular basis. When people tell you stories about things, you can imagine them going through these scenes and doing these things. It's not different than when we read a book and we can imagine what the characters are doing and what they might look like, and get a sense using our imagination. So those things are tied so closely together. What else is there? There's the clairaudience and the clairsalience, which are the clear taste and smell. So that is why sometimes, particularly, with the spirit world, for example, why we feel like we smell smoke when we don't, when a loved one is around. They're using your senses, your sixth senses, It's a weird way to say that, right? To help you smell something that's not around, or the memory of a taste. If you have the memory of a taste of something that someone in your family made, that's a very unique dish, for example, that memory of that taste, you're not physically eating it right in this moment, but if I tell you to remember the taste and texture right now of a strawberry, you can do that probably. That is that clairgustance and clairsalience. Now, clairaudience, audio, just like it sounds, is clear hearing. So often, most often, that is more an internal hearing. There's something else I want to talk about in just a minute, which is the subjective versus objective, if you haven't heard about that yet. So really, most of the time that clairaudience is happening internally. It's like the memory of a person's voice, or when you don't know what to do and all of a sudden the answer just pops into your mind, but more in like hearing a song in your mind, the memory of a song, or the memory of someone's voice, for example, or it's more along that, but it's the clear hearing, the clairaudience. Clairvoyance we already talked about, clairsentience, claircognizance. Clairsentience, that is the one we didn't get to yet. That is the clear emotion, the clear sensing or feeling, which all works through the emotion. And it is such a pivotal part of this is the emotion. So I'm going to talk about that some more in just a second, but let me tell you what I mean by the difference between objective and subjective. Now, these two words are as they relate to these clairs that we're talking about, these additional senses. There's two ways that we can receive or perceive them. The less common way is objective. When you see something outside of yourself, for example, some people have stories about that they saw their grandma sitting at the foot of their bed, for example. That's objective. It's outside of ourselves. It's not seeing it like a memory in our own mind. It's seeing it outside of ourselves, the way if you were watching me on video right now, the way that you see me. Whereas subjective means internally. So it's more that like I was talking about, how you can picture the visuals of what I'm telling you, or how you can remember the sound of someone's voice. It's more that internal rather than a voice from the sky talking to you. That would be objective. That is the lesser common way that these work. And some people do have them that way where they hear it outside of themselves, but it is a little bit less frequent. And so how do you know if you are intuitive or psychic? Well, spoiler alert, everybody has the ability to use their additional senses. It's really just to what degree you're using them. And some of that could be, your own training. Some of it could be what we refer to in the work as like programming. Like if someone ever told you it's bad to get intuition, or you should never trust your intuition, that could be something that's creating a challenge in you learning how to use your psychic or intuitive gifts. Lots of challenges can rise up for us just as humans, but it's not because we don't have the ability. It's because no one's ever taught us this terminology, or how to use our sensing, how to use the subtle energies, because that's the truth. And the most commonly misunderstood piece of this, I think, is that all of these sensings come in such a subtle whisper of a way. We really, I think most of us secretly all want it to be this big booming voice from the sky that just gives us the advice that we need and call it a day. But it's not how it works. It's us getting still. It's us having enough space in our mind, in our emotions, for that inspiration to come in, for that information to come in. And a lot of it has to do with our own personal development. As much as that's not the most sexy thing to hear, really it all stems from working on ourselves and understanding these gifts and abilities within ourselves. It's not necessarily that it's hard to do. It just takes effort, just like anything else that's worth doing. It takes your time, it takes intention, it takes you wanting to work on yourself, right? Just like anything else. So if you are wanting to develop these senses a little bit more, how can you start to play with them? Well, one easy way is just to have a little bit more permission for your imagination. But really, a lot of it comes down to what we call personal development or emotional development, personal work. It's moving through the emotions that we are hanging on to, or false beliefs about ourselves, right? We all have that negative self-talk voice. That is the voice that is quickest to quiet your intuition, because it's telling you you can't trust yourself, or you don't know what you're talking about, or you're just anxious, or you're just making that up. Intuition is the quieter voice, usually that voice of our anxiety or our self-doubt or our negative self-talk. That voice tends to be a little louder, a little more persistent. The voice of anxiety, it's often your own voice in your own head. It slips in as this gentle, even less than a whisper of a subtle nudge, is the way I receive it anyway, or the best words I have right now to talk about it. It's that feeling of, when you're driving on your way to somewhere and your mind clears for just a second and you get that little inspiration, call and check in on so-and-so. Just a fleeting thought, a fleeting inspiration. And you either, will make a note to do it or an intention to do it, or you'll let it slip by. And sometimes that inspiration, that intuition will loop around again later, and sometimes it won't. So it's really just learning how to discern your intuition, your psychic abilities. Now, something else I want to make a distinction about here is, like I said, everyone has these additional senses, these additional, senses, abilities. And as a part of that, I believe, and have seen it, thousands of times, everyone also has the ability to communicate with, to feel, to sense, to connect with our own loved ones on the other side in the spirit world as part of our sensing abilities. It's just, you might need to be taught a little bit how to do it, but you have the ability already right now to communicate, to feel, sense, receive hellos from your own loved ones in the spirit world, just like you have the ability to receive your own inspiration, guidance, intuition, information. Like I said, with the psychic sensing, I'm sure that there's a million ways where you've already seen it in your own life, but oftentimes we are taught, and sometimes in a very harsh way from the time we're young, to ignore our intuition. It's why so many times you hear someone saying, oh yeah, something in me knew that was a bad decision, or something in me knew this about this person already. It's your intuition. It's talking to you constantly. But the distinction here, I think, another distinction that's important to make is the difference between feeling and sensing our own loved ones, for example, or feeling and sensing our own inspiration, our own guidance, our own knowing. There's a difference between receiving it for ourselves and receiving it for someone else. Now, that's where you shift into wanting to work professionally, right? You want to be able to hone your abilities, your gifts, your senses in a way that you can psychically or intuitively blend with someone else to receive information about them. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the mechanics of what is happening, because when I started to understand this through training as a medium, it just made so much more sense to me. So I'm going to explain it to you in the way that I understand what is actually happening. So really, we are souls having this human experience. You are a soul who is inhabiting a physical body for your time on earth in this lifetime, right? You're a soul in a body. Now, when we leave our physical body, we are a soul outside of a body. So that's when we transition back to the spirit world. We're still a soul. We're just a soul. Often you hear it said as incarnate or disincarnate. You either have a body or you don't have a body anymore. But you still are a soul. Now, when we are in our body, in a physical body, right? Like I am right now, you're looking through your own eyeballs, you're in your own body. Your soul is housed within your body, but your soul is so much bigger than just what can be contained in your physical body. So the larger part of your soul exists outside of your body. And the part of the soul that is inside of the body creates an emanation. So it creates an aura. Or, when you turn on a light and the light emanates and radiates out and glows, that's essentially what your soul is doing. Not everyone can see it with their naked physical eyes, but all of us have this emanation of the soul. Where you probably can understand it the best, if you're saying like, Joy, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't have no glow coming out of my body. That's my soul. You crazy. If that's you and that's what you're saying in your head right now, have you ever been at the grocery store or any store really and been standing in line and someone gets right up close behind you, like too close in your personal space? That is your auric field. They're in your personal space bubble. They're in your auric bubble, your auric field, the emanation of your soul out of your body. If someone is too close to you, you can physically, you feel like you feel them too close. You might not see them, but you can feel someone too close to you. And it's the energy that you're feeling. It's because they have stepped into the glow of your soul, essentially. And their soul is blending in with yours a little bit because they're too much in your space. Now, the mechanics of that is essentially what's happening in both mediumship and psychic work. I'm just going to use it from first person because it's the easiest way for me to explain it, but it would go for you too or any other psychic or medium. So when I'm working mediumistically, my soul is radiating, emanating, glowing, right? And I'm expanding that light, the energy of my soul. And with mediumship, it's another soul without a body. So a person on the other side, a discarnate person, is blending the energy of their soul with my soul. So they're like standing really close to me. They're blending their soul with mine. And it's what lets me feel, see, sense, hear, all the clairs we were talking about. Those are the faculties I'm using to communicate with the spirit world through the subtle sensing as the energy of their soul blends with the energy of my soul. So it's a soul to soul communication. That's the way we say it. Now, when I'm not working mediumistically, if I have a client that needs a psychic reading, for example, they've got things going on in their life or they just want some guidance, it's still a soul-to-soul communication. Because remember, we just talked about you're still a soul, whether you're in a body or out of a body, you're still a soul at the end of the day. So in a psychic reading, it's the emanation of my soul's glow, right? That energy coming out from my soul, blending with the energy of another soul in a body. So like you, for example, I'm blending the energy of my soul with the energy of your soul. And that's what would allow me, with your permission, to understand things going on in your life, choices you're making. I might understand. Really, it just depends on what the greatest need is. That's where the emotion is. That's where the energy is. So I might understand things about your family. I might understand things about your past to help me understand you and guidance potentially for the future. So like, I don't believe anyone can predict the future, but we can see potentials or become aware of potentials. And give guidance around them, right? So I could, for example, become aware of the potential in someone's energy of their soul in this lifetime to be a teacher, let's just say. And if that person says, actually, I'm going to school to be a teacher, I want to be a teacher. Okay, perfect. Then that is probably what's going to happen for them if they keep making choices and decisions down that path of becoming a teacher. They take their credentials, they do whatever they need to do, they get their job, they're a teacher. However, if that same person, after training for a bit to be a teacher, decided, actually, I don't want to do this, or I don't want to do this right now, and left the certificate program they were in and decided to, I don't know, become a gardener, for example, then at that time period, they wouldn't be becoming a teacher. Now, does it mean that that potential is completely gone for them? No. If someone has the core qualities to be a teacher, they still have those core qualities. It just means that they're choosing to use them in a different way. So, who knows? Maybe 5 years from now, they have a garden center and they're teaching gardening classes. They're still a teacher. It's just in a different capacity. That example's easy for me just because people used to always tell me I was going to be a teacher. And I was like, there's just no way. Like I had some teachers that I loved that were amazing and others that made school really miserable for me. And I actually really love being a student. I love learning. So for someone to make class not fun for me is a kind of a tough thing to do. But I couldn't comprehend when people would say, oh, you're going to be a teacher, or I took the little personality test that says what you should be, and it was psychologist or teacher. And I just was like, I don't want to do either of those things. I didn't have great experiences with them at the time. And now it makes so much sense to me. I just didn't understand that it doesn't always have to be expressed, right? We don't always have to express those gifts in the most traditional sense of the words as we understand them. So I might not be a teacher in a blackboard with a class of little kids, but I teach all the time. I teach in my work. I teach programs. I train healers. So I do teach and I love teaching. It's just not in the way I thought. And that is one of the things too with psychic or intuitive information. Sometimes even when we receive the information, the way it rolls out in the world based on the choices and decisions that the individual makes, it doesn't always look how we thought it was going to look, right? For example, I could see or feel the potential in someone's field through their soul in their auric field, right? That they have the potential to be a parent, right? And if you just heard that and you were thinking in the most linear sense of the word, you might think, oh, that means this person is going to be a biological parent of a biological child in their lifetime. Well, it doesn't always mean that. Children can show up in our lives in many different ways, and we can become parents both officially and non-officially in so many different ways. So it could mean, all the different ways that someone could become a parent or that someone could be helping to raise or foster a child, no matter how they come into our world. It's just sometimes our limited human thinking or understanding that puts those boundaries on it, right? So there's a difference between using our gifts, our senses to feel our own loved ones or receive inspiration or intuition for ourselves versus working for someone else. It's just a whole different way of using the gifts. And so a lot of people think, oh, well, because I can't look at a random person and read everything about them, that means I'm not psychic. Well, no, that's not what that means. Here's why. One, you probably haven't been trained to know how to discern information or how to use your senses or how to get out of your own way with the tough emotions that you have or the negative self-talk that you have to even access how to use your senses to give guidance or to receive information about that person, number one. Number two, most of the time, we're not just looking at random people and giving random information. That is not okay. That's crossing a boundary. There's a level of consent that needs to happen. I don't just blend into my friends' spaces and understand troubles going on in their relationship, for example. That's not appropriate. I wouldn't want to do that to someone. That's crossing a boundary. That's a breach of trust in a different way, just like you wouldn't want someone reading your diary. You don't go around, even if you are able to use that gift readily right now, you don't go around just telling people things that they didn't ask you, just like you don't go around ambushing people, even if you're aware of their dad in spirit, for example, and you know that he's there to communicate or that you're just aware of him. You don't just ambush someone who hasn't asked you to work with them in this way. There are boundaries around this work, both for the recipient, the person in the world who you're going to be talking to, and for the worker, for yourself. There are times when you are working and not working. There are times for training, right? And so it's all about honoring these things that already belong to you. The clairs that we talked about, they're already a part of you. You have them, you're born with them, they come naturally to all of us. It's just that as we grow, as we move in the world, we are taught to rely entirely on however many of the five senses that we have access to in our body and none of the others, right? But sometimes, like I was talking about with the line in the store, sometimes those senses are just there and we're aware of them. You're aware when someone's standing too close to you, even though you haven't looked behind you. You're sensing them. You're feeling their energy. That's what you're doing. You are blending with them. You're just not perceiving information about them. It's why sometimes if you're very close with someone and you have a lot of experience, spending time with them, for example, anytime you're hanging out with a friend, you're exchanging energy, you're blending into each other's space, and our systems are discerning lots of information all the time beyond just our five senses. We can be conscious of it or not conscious of it. It doesn't make it happening any less. Just like gravity, you can be conscious of gravity or not conscious of gravity. It doesn't make you any less subject to gravity, right? So it's similar with our senses. Even if you haven't been trained or taught how to use them, there's times you're using them, especially with people you're close with. It's why it's what we call mother's intuition. If you have a young person in your life, whether they are biologically connected to you or any other way, and they come into the room, you might just know, even if they look totally normal, you might know, oh, something's up with them. They are sad or they're upset about something. Let me check in. That's your intuition. That's your psychic abilities. If you, like I was talking about the thing with the phone, a lot of people know it that way, where they think, oh, I feel like that's this person calling me. And then they look and it is. Or they just think of someone and then all of a sudden the phone rings and it's that person. It's that person energetically moving towards you. You're aware of them and then they call. So your system, your auric field, your soul, your senses are aware of things often before our conscious mind is processing them. We're processing them on all these different levels. And we have these senses working for us all the time. So really, it's up to you if you want to choose to learn how to intentionally use them or not. You can leave them just in the background if you want. You don't have to ever address them or hone them or practice them or work with them if you don't want to. And they'll work probably just the same as they do right now. Once in a while, you might get inspired about something or guidance about something. And sometimes you might not. Have you ever had an intuition to just like pack something extra with you for the day? Like it's kind of that old, I'm just going to take an umbrella and I don't know why type of a feeling. Or maybe you just bring a pair of extra socks and you just so happen to need them. It's that sort of a thing. Like we don't know why we're feeling inspired to do this or the nudge to do this. And then we end up needing it. It's that. And the more that we trust it, the more that we get used to listening to that still small voice or that very subtle inspiration or nudge, the more we become familiar with the way it feels, or the more we get trained within ourselves to start listening to that voice, that sensing, so that it can become louder and that it can become about more things. Now, one of the other things that people always ask me, and I got to tell you, it's still frustrating for me too, even though I do this work, is why can't I get information about the things that are the most important to me, right? A lot of people wish they could have some sort of, ahead of time information about something in their life. For example, I often have people ask me about finding love, right? Finding their partner. Why can't I know when my person's going to come? Well, we're back to the misconception about predicting the future. In order to predict the future definitively, meaning like this is the only option, there are no alternate options, this is definitely what's going to happen, there is no if this, then this. It means that the future is predetermined, which I don't believe that it is. I believe we have free will choices, and with each choice we make, some doors close, other doors open. We move further on one path, we move away from another path, or vice versa, or we might move back to a path. But I don't believe that all of these things are predetermined for us, like we're just moving through some pre-programmed game, for example. I think we're making actual choices that then, like I said, lead some doors to open and others to close. And it might, like, say you make a choice today, well, this other opportunity that's available to you, you might just push it back on the timeline because you chose option A instead of B. These doors associated with option B, oh, you're just going to come back around to those later if they're for you, right? So I don't think that things are predestined for us in that way where they're already all decided for us and we have no choices. So that's why it's hard to predict the future, because it's not already decided. There are potentials and possibilities, but we need to choose them. So that's one. The other thing to know is often it's just a little more difficult to get clear sensing, clear information, discernment around things that we have a lot of emotional attachment to, because all of this sensing, all of the psychic gifts, all of the clairs work through the faculty of the emotion. And that teaching comes directly from Andy Bing, who I mentored with. Most of you guys know I mention him all the time. And one day he'll be here on the podcast with us. But that I just want to give credit where credit is due. That teaching comes directly from what I learned from him. All of these gifts, these abilities work through the emotion. So if there is something going on in your life, for example, say a relationship that is feeling challenged right now, and you're wondering, why can't I get any guidance or inspiration or intuition about this relationship? Well, chances are you have been all along and you've been ignoring it or pushing it to the side or avoiding it. But the more inflamed our emotions become about something, right? The more upset we become, the more passionate we become, the more we care about an outcome, the harder it is to be neutral about it, right? And obviously, if you're biased towards one specific outcome, it's going to be really hard to sense the other potentials, right? It's going to be really hard to be available for information, inspiration, guidance that's very contrary to what you think you want in that moment. Because the truth is, sometimes as humans, we get caught up in these relationships, situations where we think we know what we want, but actually, from a bigger picture perspective, that's not what's right for us, or that's not healthy for us, or that's not what we actually need. So that is really the other big reason why it's hard to get guidance and inspiration and information for yourself. Now, it's not impossible. There are some workarounds, right? And that's basically a lot of what I'm going to teach in that workshop is the workarounds to get inspiration, intuition, psychic guidance for ourselves. So I'm going to give you several of those workarounds in that 5-day free workshop. But if you wanted to start moving that direction, the key to everything is the emotion. The key to enhancing your sensing abilities, enhancing your intuition is working on your own emotions. So if there is an emotion that you are avoiding, right? I think we can all think of someone that we've known in our lives or our past, even if it's us, that is a real people pleaser, right? I'm a reforming people pleaser myself. And sometimes if someone's a people pleaser, for example, they're not fully feeling their own emotions. They're conditioned or trained or programmed to be checking on, aware of, or caring about everyone else's emotions before their own. So if someone is a people pleaser, for example, it's almost like we're turning down our own emotions to be more sensitive to the needs, wants, whims sometimes of everybody else, and less in tune with our own needs, wants, emotions. And it is that clairsentience, the sensing, the emotion that is what gives us those nudges, those inspirations, those little pings of this isn't right for you or this is right for you. Those tingles of, oh my gosh, I don't know why, but I just feel like I need to go here, right? The emotion is almost always what is blocking or in the way of you discerning the information for yourself. So really, the place to start is with ourselves before we venture out to try to be psychic or mediumistic for someone else, right? It's like work on our own house first before, patch your own lifeboat before you go trying to work in someone else's. And there are some meditations that are specific that really help with the development of this work, which I'm going to give the main one in that free workshop in April, starting April 10th. I'm going to give it probably on that day. And then there are some emotional tools and some exercises that also help. But if you wanted to start moving through those difficult emotions, of course, if you work with a therapist, that's wonderful. If that resonates with you, if you work with other emotional assistant practitioners, whatever works for you, do that. Maybe it's journaling for you, but just allowing yourself when those hard emotions rise up, anger, frustration, denial, regret, avoidance. Sometimes our human nature is to want to avoid all of the tough emotions, and really we need to move through them to more deeply access our own psychic gifts and abilities. So to answer the question of the day, are you psychic? Yes, you are. And you can tell everyone I said it. So are you psychic? Yes, you are. You might feel like there is a little bit of fog in your way. And really, it all comes back to the emotion and then understanding how to use the senses, the additional senses that you have. That's really the magic. And the rest is just practice. So I hope that you will join me for that free live workshop starting on April 10th, because I'm going to give you some tools. I'm going to give you that meditation. I'm going to go through it with you and really just get you started on that path of igniting your intuition. And then the other thing to know, which again, not the sexiest information, but it's a lifelong process. This is not a one and done, take this class and check that box, and then you have clear psychic knowing for the rest of your life. It's just not how it works. We're emotional creatures. We are in these physical bodies. Our souls are having this human experience to feel and work with all of the whole spectrum of emotion, not just the feel-good emotions, because as we all know, it is usually in the challenge that we get the most growth, the most understanding. It's where the wisdom comes from, right? And we need the light and the shade equally. So resisting these hard emotions, shoving them down, avoiding them, ignoring them, whatever word you want to put in here for yourself. I don't love the word block. If you've been with me at all, you know this about me, but that's what's blocking our sensing, the more subtle sensing. We're trained to focus on only the 5 senses, ignore the subtle senses, hide our emotions, be dishonest with our emotions. And often there are emotions about things, often in our past, that we are not even fully honest with ourselves about. So how could we expect to get a clear sensing of anything else when we're not being clear and honest with ourselves? It all starts with you. It all starts within each one of us for ourselves. And you can choose to never learn any of this. That's okay. It's available to you, but you don't have to choose to do it. Just like language is available to you, but you could choose not to speak if you didn't want to. So I really, once I understood what psychic is, what it isn't, and how to continue to develop the senses, to hone them, and to continue to work on the discernment, it really changed my opinion about everything. And that's what I'm hoping maybe this will open up for you as well. It's not about predicting the future. It's definitely not about winning the lottery. It is about being more in our human experience, but there's just so much more than just what we know with our five senses. There are all these additional bits of information for us swirling around all the time. It's why sometimes many psychics, I'm going to just use the word, guys, get used to it. Many psychics, when we're young, have some version of someone in your life telling you you're too much. You're too much. Your emotions are too much. And maybe it's not when you're young. Maybe it's like right now or last year or 5 years ago. You're too much. Your emotions are too much. It could show up as, oh no, not again. What are you emotional about now? You're too sensitive. Any version of that you had, that's a pretty clear indicator that, you're psychic. It's just a weird cultural thing that,